Mike Wheeler, a simultaneously much loved and hated character. But with the release of Stranger Things Season 5 Volume 1, I think most people have once again come to love the leader and the protector Mike who we knew and loved from Season 1 and 2. But what's really going on with Mike? Today I'm going to take a look at Season 5 Mike, what's made the audience love his character again, but also the deeper themes going on that Mike has been struggling with. After all, while we all love the apparent return to Season 1 and 2 Mike, having Mike's character change the way it did throughout Season 3 and 4 with no explanation, just to end up right back where he started, that's not character development, and that doesn't tell a story. So what's really going on with Mike this season under this facade, and what does that mean for the story going forward? So, to start off with, let's take a look at the shift in Mike this season that's made the general audience fall back in love with his character. What we all loved about Season 1 and 2 Mike, then the criticisms he faced by the general audience in Season 3 and 4, and now Mike's character in Season 5. Mike in Season 1 and 2 was a fan favourite for a reason. He was a brave and loyal friend, a bold leader and a protector, and a kind and compassionate character. We saw this in his determination to save Will when he went missing, and in Season 1 his refusal to give up even when all the odds were against him, and still defending Will from the bullies even when he was gone. Then in Season 2 we saw him again, protecting and looking out for Will as he stayed by his side throughout Will's possession, and there was the one there offering comfort and understanding, while simultaneously refusing to give up trying to reach Elle. So what went wrong? Well, most of the hate for Season 3 and 4 Mike is that he kind of acts like a jerk. He's a bad friend, particularly to Will, and that a lot of his actions seems very out of character. I wonder why that could be. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic here, as I, along with lots of other Bylers out there on the internet, have given a lot of thought on this topic and come up with a lot of answers that fit both Mike's character and his upbringing and would tie nicely in with the themes and plots of the show. And this is that Mike has been dealing with compulsory heterosexuality and internalized homophobia due to his realizing feelings for Will. And even for those not so deep into the Mike Wheeler fandom, many people can still see that the switch up of Mike's character is correlated with him being in a relationship with Elle, and that in the times when they are broken up, Mike starts returning to many of the initial qualities, being loyal, kind, protective, that made him a fan favourite to begin with. We see throughout much of Mike's actions and dialogue in Season 3 and 4 that Will and Elle occupy the same headspace for him, and that he struggles to be close to both of them at once. Not something you would expect if these were totally platonic feelings going on towards Will. And now we're in Season 5, and everyone is cheering over the return of leader Mike. The Mike who's back leading the party, making plans, looking out for his friends, being protective of Will, and standing up to the bullies. So everything's good, right? Well, yes, sort of, but also no. I want to quickly analyse this from a storytelling perspective here. In a good story, each character should go on a journey and grow as a character. That's what we call character development. And it's what makes stories come alive. You can probably all think of one or two shows which fail to do this. They're so focused on telling the journeys of one or two key characters that all the others are just sort of forgotten about. They feel stagnant, and the story feels flat. If we look at Mike's Season 5 character, on a surface level, with the return of leader and protector Mike from Season 1 and 2, this hasn't told us a story yet. Mike starts off as the leader, loyal friend, etc., deviates from this for a bit with no apparent explanation, then comes straight back, also with no explanation. And this isn't really character growth. Writers don't write stories where characters end in the exact same places they started. And here I'm obviously talking about emotional places because parallels between the start and end of story are very common. But for Mike, without something more, his character would appear underdeveloped, especially when you compare him to some of the other main characters in Stranger Things, like Will. For viewers who don't believe the internalized homophobia explanation, this is the story you have. Two good friends, one who is always very protective of the other and even stands up for him to homophobic bullies, then suddenly out of the blue becomes homophobic, won't talk to him or go near his friend who he now suspects is gay, and tries to gaslight him over it. Then his big arc is realizing actually he should treat his friend, gay or not, the same he would do anybody else. Of course, I simplified that there, but to show my point, that is not a good story arc for a character. And it's not even like the story arc would be overcoming homophobic views, because we clearly see from season 1 that Mike is not homophobic to begin with. And if you argue here that it's not homophobia, Mike's just a jerk, two best friends, one suddenly becomes a jerk for no reason, then decides to stop, also isn't a good story arc. I know I'm simplifying things here, don't come for me, but hopefully you get the point I'm trying to make. Good writing gives characters proper, thought out reasons for these big changes in their personality, like what we see of Mike, or else it's just lazy writing. There has to be a well thought out reason for the drastic shifts in Mike's character, and now from a surface level, his seemingly return to his starting point, being a good friend, a leader, etc. There has to be some sort of internal journey we're taking on to get here, and that has to show character growth. Next, I want to delve deeper into Mike's character beyond this change back to the leader and protector, and explore a big problem that Mike is facing and what is stopping his growth. Mike is afraid of change. And this isn't a new problem for Mike either. We saw it in season 2 with his annoyance and insecurities over Max joining the party, and we also saw it in season 4 with his expression that he's worried Elle won't need him anymore, which I'll talk a bit more about in a moment. But it's only now, change is happening whether Mike Wheeler likes it or not, and he can no longer stay in denial over it. I think Mike's fear of change can be seen clearest in the scene at the hospital where Mike and Nancy are talking about what they could have done to prevent the attack on their family. Of course, the context of this scene is that they're both dealing with a lot of guilt here over what has happened, but I think my point still stands. We see two very different standpoints. Nancy, who in the guilt is taking responsibility, asking why they didn't tell their family sooner about what was going on, but just let them live in ignorance because they didn't want to deal with the fallout. Mike, who denies that it was their fault. How could they have possibly known? Why Holly? And while he's partly right that it's not all their fault, it's this fear of change that has caused this problem, interrupting the stability that he finds in his home during all that's been going on the past few years, and the fact that he couldn't bear to lose this and is now facing the consequences at the expense of others. His childhood home destroyed, his family in danger, hurt and missing. He can no longer live in denial that change is happening, and he has no shelter to hide behind anymore. And I don't think I could talk about this without mentioning the detail that many fans have picked up on, that during this attack on the house, Mike's closet is literally destroyed. I'm not quite sure what clearer imagery you want than that. A minute ago, I mentioned Mike expressing his fear of losing Elle, which he said was making him draw away from her. At first, when watching this, I thought this was a load of nonsense and made no sense, just another part of his cover up. But actually, in a way, it really does make sense. For Mike, losing Elle is another change he feels is coming, and another reminder to him that he's not in control of who others are or them growing up, and that things can't stay simple forever. An insecurity we can see he's projected on Will throughout the show. This sentiment of people growing up, changing, and things becoming more complicated, despite characters wishing otherwise, is expressed several times throughout the show, such as in Hopper's letter to Elle at the end of season 3, and Jonathan's Legos up the nose speech to Will. The first one having Mike and Will overtones, the second one explicitly about Will's feelings. Mike is scared that Elle will leave him and realises that he can't give her what she wants and deserves. And I have a theory of my channel that this fear may have already come true for Mike and 11 has already broken up. In my opinion, Mike's season 4 arc is more than just him realising he shouldn't be a jerk to Will actually, and it's a journey of overcoming this internalized homophobia and accepting these things about himself, and in doing so, Mike is able to be open and honest again around Will. But for Mike, who, after years of hating himself for these feelings and being made to feel by society that they are wrong, I think he is equally in denial here that Will couldn't possibly love him back as Will is at the start of season 5. So instead of exploring this new part of himself and what it can mean, Mike ignores it. Will could obviously never love him back, and with their relationship finally in a good place again and for Mike back to normal, why would he risk jeopardizing that? He can't risk losing Will and their friendship again over something he does. So he'd rather continue living in denial than ever have to properly confront these feelings, thinking just acknowledging them internally is enough and the end of the journey. So he'll just suppress these feelings. And which again, we have imagery here that I've talked about that this does not going to work. Now, to refer back to the concept that I'm sure all buyers have heard at this point, writers don't write slow burn rejections. They resolve them quickly, and you definitely wouldn't continue setting them up now just for rejection with only 4 episodes left. While this explanation of Mike's journey and his feelings are not yet known to the general audience, Will's feelings towards Mike have now been explored in Volume 1. We have seen him both be able to independently accept himself regardless whether or not someone likes him back, and we have seen the hope planted in him that perhaps Mike could love him back, and we have been given specific signs to look for. Signs present for those paying attention since the very start, and we now had the time in between the 2 volumes to go back and look at. And also from Will's expression, signs that, now looking back, he's starting to notice too. So now it's Mike's turn. The audience needs to see his perspective. Many people like me believe a Mike POV is coming in the aftermath of Will's powers, and we also still have this scene from the trailer to come. I also think it's worth noting that in the trailer, this scene is directly followed by Elle saying to Mike that this is unlike one of his campaigns and he doesn't get to write the ending. And again, it ties into these themes I've been talking about Mike struggling to accept change and finally having to face it and release control over things. We need to see Mike's feelings for Will and his belief that they could never be reciprocated, hence his fear to bring them up and risk change and rejection. And from a writing point of view, this would work perfectly and align with the slow burn trope we are getting. It's very common for the audience in these slow burn stories to be shown how two characters feel about each other, while the two themselves live in denial that the other could ever love them back. Even getting scenes with this belief is reinforced for those two characters, even though we know the truth. And it is this that makes the audience root for them, because as an audience, we love the feeling that we know something the characters don't, and it makes their eventual coming together feel all that more satisfying and worth the wait. As I've said, we've seen Will's perspective. My theory at the moment is that we'll see Mike's in the opening of Volume 2, and I think this would tie in with the episode titled Shock Jock, with the aftermath of Episode 4 with Will's powers being revealed, and also now the revelation of Mike's feelings. Then there'll be the inevitable wait after this to give time for the audience to see the full picture, knowing now the truth that they know, and seeing both characters being in denial and rooting for them. Then there is some sort of catalyst that forces these two characters to finally open up, either by some sort of event or from another character. With my theory that Mike's feelings will be revealed to the audience in episode 5, I think this then will leave time for that to settle in with the audience and build up, with my belief that episode 6, Escape from Camazotz, will have a Will and Mike team up mission to rescue Holly. Both from what we know about them having lots of scenes together this season, which we have not yet seen, and also in terms of this storyline, I think it would make sense. And this would give us lots of scenes of Mike and Will alone, now with the audience knowing what they know, trying to spot the signs, and rooting for Mike and Will to finally realise what we now know. I think the revelation will either come in episode 7, The Bridge, or episode 8, The Right Side Up, both with titles that could be interpreted as the truth being finally shared between the two of them. Building a bridge, and then things being the right side up, as in right again. Personally, I hope this comes in episode 7 because I think it's too common for slow burns to be written where it's not resolved right to the end. I get that this is to keep the tension going as long as possible, but personally, I think that it robs the audience of actually seeing the pair together after all the time we've been waiting. But we'll see. There's plenty of theories flying around the internet how this revelation could actually happen. Some believe that the Murray pattern will continue, either by Murray himself or Robin or even Lucas. Some believe Vecna will bring up these feelings from one of the characters and cause them to finally talk about it. Others that something will happen as they team up to save Holly, where the stakes are very high, maybe as the wall comes down, or at the church, which we've seen some behind the scenes photo of, and we also now know that the Upside Down team are located there. Maybe they're trying to rescue them. And obviously, there's also the painting light, a Chekhov's gun that still needs to be fired. Whatever way this revelation happens, it will perfectly culminate the slow burn writing trope and will allow the general audience to come to a place where they are rooting for these two and want themselves to be proven right. And to clarify here, by the general audience, I don't mean the crazy Reddit Malevans or the blatantly homophobic viewers. I just mean the general audience, the majority. So I hope you enjoyed my explanation of what I think is going on with Mike this season and how I think this will play out, which would give a very satisfying Byler ending, tie in thematically with the show, and also just make total sense from a writing perspective. I really hope I didn't waffle on too much here. I think Mike's story is a very nuanced and complicated one, and I wanted to explain it the best that I could. Let me know below whether there's any other topics you want me to cover in a video, and have a great day!